Good evening and welcome to the 2022 Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum. My name is Albert Vargas and I am the Chair of the Government Relations Committee for our Chamber. Our Executive Director, Casey Lyons, sends her regrets as she is sick this evening at home. She wishes you all good luck and would like to express her gratitude for everyone being here. I would like to personally thank the Hampton Inn Call Altar for hosting us this evening and would like to thank our corporate sponsors listed in your program. Without them, you know, this event and many events would not be possible. Many thanks to the Chamber staff and the Government Relations Committee for the hard work in planning tonight's event. Especially thank you to our candidates for serving our community and taking time out of their busy schedules. We're looking forward to hearing from them tonight. To begin our festivities, I would like to welcome to the stage Boy Scout Troop number 29 to present our colors and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Color guard, please post the colors. Got signs? Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guard regroup. Color guard forward march.
Please be seated. Thank you, Boy Scouts. Now I would like to introduce our timekeeper for this evening, Mr. Craig Lawhorn, and our moderator, Ms. Tasha Walsh. Both are members of the Board of Directors of the Government Relations Committee. And at this time, I would like to start things over to Tasha to share with you all the rules for tonight and to get us started.
Leave that one there. Okay.
Thanks, Albert. Welcome, everybody. So the bios of our candidates are in your program. I want to remind people that this is a forum. This is not a debate. There are opportunities for people to pose questions. Back in the corner, there's some cards. You can write your questions down. The Government Relations Committee of the Chamber of Commerce did kind of survey community members and folks in our community and came up with some questions that we will be posing the candidates. They've been sent the questions ahead of time. Once we get through all of those questions, if there's time, then we'll incorporate some of the questions that are submitted from the audience. I want to remind people we are also live streaming this. Hi everybody out in the community, and I think over there we're live streaming in a couple different ways. There are also some guidelines and some rules that we are asking people to respect that are outlined in the back of the program. Where each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we will start in alphabetical order with the first question, and then when the second question goes, we'll kind of reverse it in terms of the order that the questions are asked. Each candidate will have an opportunity to answer the question. You'll have 2 minutes to answer the question. And our timekeeper has a 30-minute sign, a 10-second sign, and then we will stop you. And we are going to ask the candidates to come up here so that all of you can see them and they can see you, and we really are hoping this to be an opportunity for folks in our community to hear those who are here to represent us. So again, we thank you all for being here very much. And without further ado, I'm going to start here in alphabetical order and ask you each to come up and introduce yourself. So you'll have 2 minutes to introduce yourself. Okay?
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Colette Derrick, and I'm very glad
to be here. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event, and thank you for all of you to come. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get to learn more about what we're thinking.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? I'm of course Betts. I'm glad to see so many familiar faces here. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for putting on this wonderful event, and it's great that it's being covered so folks not in attendance will have a chance to see this as well. Some background on me. I'm an attorney. I'm a small business holder here in Lexington. I have a background working in a few different fields. I worked in education for a little bit as a substitute teacher. I am currently an attorney, and I work in business both as a consultant and as a contracts manager. Currently, I am involved in the community in various ways. I'm vice chair of the Lexington City Planning Commission. We deal with land use and zoning and things of that nature. I'm the education committee chairman of the Rockbridge NAACP, and we work with local students in the community, K through 12, give out scholarships also for college as well, and try to make sure that youth and college students have sufficient funding for programs that they request. I'm also on the Rockbridge Area Relief Association Board of Directors. We help assist people with food as well as housing and utilities. So I try to be active in the community. I attended Washington Lee University School of Law for my JD. I got my bachelor's and master's degrees in history at Virginia Commonwealth University. And in terms of my family, me and my wife Lindsay live here with our dog Hendrix, and we're expecting a baby girl here.
Oh. Congratulations.
All right, thank you very much for having me tonight. Thanks to the Chamber of Commerce and the Hampton Inn. My name is David Sigler, and I'm running for Lexington City Council, and I hope that I have the opportunity to earn your vote tonight if you haven't already voted early, like 590 people in the city of Lexington. So, I moved to Lexington 25 years ago. I met my wife in the Palms, and we have been married for 18 years. We have two wonderful daughters. I have a 4th grader named Alice, she's 9 years old, and I have a 9th grader named Claire, she's 14 years old. Both of my children attend schools here in the city of Lexington. My oldest was born just over there at Lexington-Rockbridge Hospital while they still had a birthing unit. And we feel that's very important to Lexington, and hopefully there's a future for that. Again, possibly. I'm running for Lexington City Council because I prioritize local service in local government. I'm a student of local government. I thrive on our Thursday evening meetings, and I prioritize facts, data, and public input when making decisions that affect all my neighbors and all the citizens of this entire region. We do not operate in a vacuum, and every decision that I make, I take a large, wide view to understand the impacts it has on everyone. And I hope to have the opportunity to continue doing that for you on Lexington City Council. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. My name's Chuck Smith. This is my I guess 5th time up here. I can say public speaking is still all it's cracked up to be. The first time I didn't need these, but here we are. I'm 59 years old. I moved to Lexington-Rockbridge County in 1991. I also met my wife in the Palms. I opened Washington Street Purveyors downtown in 1996. We have 2 kids. My daughter Jenner, 22, just graduated from Whitman College, also a product of our local school system. And our son Charlie is out at Whitman College, currently also a product of our local school system. I've served on numerous boards and commissions, including 2 Main Street boards, Historic Lexington Foundation Board, Lexington-Rockbridge JCs, Lexington-Rockbridge and Buena Vista Tourism Board, Served as chair of the Planning Commission, and I'm continuing my service on the Blue Ridge Resource Authority, which is our landfill board. I also serve as a substitute teacher in our schools and a substitute driver in our schools. I'm currently focusing my efforts on tapping new revenues for our region to lighten as much of the load as possible for our local property taxpayers by encouraging tourism and visitation from folks around the region from here and there to spend and play and stay and eat and just have a good time in Rockbridge and enjoy what everything we have to offer is. Those tax dollars coming in as a result of those visitations help lighten the load on the folks that already live here. Thanks again to the Chamber and for everybody that's come tonight. Looking forward to discussions we had this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we're start alphabetically. Start with you, Ben. Thank you.
My name is Ben Klein, and I'm here for the City Council Forum. No, it is great to be back in Lexington, where I grew up, where I learned the value of hard work. Whether it was mowing lawns, washing dishes at my first job at the Palms, selling clothes at Leggett's downtown, or lifeguarding out at Lake Robertson. And the values that I gained from growing up here in Rockbridge County of faith, family, and freedom were instilled in me at an early age. And those are values I've come to learn are shared by hardworking men and women up and down the Shenandoah and Roanoke valleys, from Salem to Fincastle and Waynesboro to Winchester. And it has been the honor of my life to represent the citizens of Rockbridge County and Lexington and Buena Vista and points beyond, first in the Virginia General Assembly in Richmond, and now in Washington as your representative. You know, the area is full of great entrepreneurs and great small businesses. This chamber has always sponsored a forum like this, and it has never come up short. It's always been a successful event. You have great entrepreneurs in this area that make up your chamber, Tina Miller, Margaret Ann Smith, and the late Bobby Burke-Stresser, who did so much for this community and for this chamber. Great businesses like Frank's Pizza, Hamrick and Sheridan, where I got my engagement ring, Wells Construction, Great Valley Farm Brewery. These are the people of this community and the values that I strive to take to Washington each and every day. But those values are under attack. They're under attack by a bureaucracy that is striving to mandate regulations, more taxation, and more interference in our daily lives. I fight it each and every day, and I'd be honored to receive your vote to continue to represent you in the future. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jennifer Lewis, and I'm your Democratic candidate for Congress. I want to first thank the Lexington-Rockbridge Chamber of Commerce for hosting this amazing forum. Hopefully be very informative for all you voters. And I thank each and one of you for coming tonight. I live in Waynesboro with my husband, Ben, our dog, and our 4 cats. Professionally, I work as a mental health provider. I help folks discharged from our state psychiatric hospitals back into their community. And a huge reason that I'm running for office is because of my job. It's so hard to find affordable housing. It's so hard to find something for them to do during the day. So many of our psychosocial day programs have shut down. It's so hard to find treatment options, and there's just such a lack of funding for mental health care. So mental health is going to be a huge priority of mine, but also overall health care. We need to pass legislation that ensures that everybody has access to preventative and ongoing care. People should be able to be treated for illnesses, get medical issues addressed, and resolved without going bankrupt or dying from a treatable issue. I served for 4 years as an elected member of the Headwaters Soil and Water Conservation Board, where I worked with a variety of stakeholders to install best management practices on their land to address soil erosion and water quality. Projects like these have directly improved the overall health of the Chesapeake Bay. We need to quickly switch over to job-creating renewable energy and phase out the use of fossil fuels and not invest in any more pipeline infrastructure. I support a strong and effective EPA because water is life.
I want to add that I will be your strongest ally in Washington. Time and time again, my opponent has voted the party line, even when it's harmful to the families of the 6th District. I will fight every day to work with anybody to make sure that I am finding ways to make your life less stressful. I would be honored to have your trust and your vote, and we deserve representation that will work for us instead of working for a political agenda.
Thank you. So the first questions are going to be for our city council candidates, and we will. The questions are going to start in alphabetical order, so we'll start again with Colette. And it's the same question, so you can all think about this. So affordable housing is an issue that affects all communities in our country, and our city is not immune from it. What can the city do to offer more affordable housing options for Lexington residents?
Well, the first question that I had on the email was,
So-
what is going to be my first?
And that's not in, we're asking the questions in a little bit different order, but you will be asked that question. So if you could start with the third question is the first one that we're asking.
So I don't believe there's any easy solution to this situation. I feel like our economy is in a dire crisis right now, and our goal should be to hang tight, get stronger, communicate with each other, and get through the winter. I do believe that in January, we will see a turnaround, and there will be some hope and optimism injected into our country. But as far as housing goes, I feel like we should be supporting really good groups like Habitat and the TAP program down in Roanoke. A few weeks ago, the City Council, and I'm so grateful to them for inviting Annette Lewis to speak to the council, and she's the CEO of the TAP program down there, and they have awesome housing programs on real estate, navigating loan programs, housing rehabilitations, which several of our communities could really use, veterans and housing, and I have developed a relationship with Annette, and I'm hoping to bring some of those programs up here, whether or not I'm elected to council. But nothing is going to improve our lives, and we will not be strong so we can help others if we don't stop fighting among ourselves. And I do believe with God's grace and working together, we can accomplish anything. We cannot take our country and our freedoms for granted.
So I think affordable housing is one of the most important issues facing our city, our state, and our country right now. Specifically speaking about the city of Lexington, we need to look at things such as how things are zoned. We need to take a look at new construction and consider how we can incentivize new construction to maximize densities so that folks can have an affordable space to live in. Additionally, I think if we look at utilizing tax rehabilitation credits to incentivize businesses and entrepreneurs to find a way to fix up housing that's fallen into disrepair, because there are houses that could be fixed up and utilized that may not be very functional currently. Furthermore, I think that if we find a way to take a multifaceted approach, we can expand affordable housing here in Lexington by working together as a community, local government, local businesses, citizens, and speaking about, ways that we can grow the supply of housing here in Lexington. On Planning Commission, I try to, take a look at, how is land being used, and when possible, I try to, support things that, support policies that increase affordable housing. I'll do the same thing on city council. And one way that I believe that affordable housing will be increased is essentially by finding different ways, as I said, to kind of repurpose housing. That's the most immediate solution potentially. But having said that, as new construction comes in, we can find a way to increase density that way as well. Thank you.
So the issue of affordable housing is a challenge, but it's an opportunity, and I'm not afraid of challenges or opportunities. And the city of Lexington has demonstrated over the last 6 or 8 years its willingness to partner with organizations that have a priority on affordable housing. We think back to 2016, the city's IDA, our Industrial Development Authority, partnered with the owners of Lexington House Apartments and Windermere Apartments to provide tax incentives so they could remodel their units for their residents. And recently on a community walk, I got to visit Lexington House Apartments, and I got to see the brand new flooring, the new appliances that those residents are enjoying that are more efficient and much nicer for them to enjoy. There's other issues, other opportunities, and there's sometimes the chance for the city to lead, but sometimes we have to play a supporting role on affordable housing. We tried to lead on the Thompson's Knoll project. We did not succeed how we envisioned success looking, but ultimately that turned out to be an amazing neighborhood, and I'm thrilled that Thompson's Knoll has taken off. But it did take private investors and private development to take that to where it is now. The city of Lexington has also long prioritized providing additional apartments in the city, and that can take different strokes. For example, General's Retreat Apartments. It's on Nelson Street. That's about a 50-year-old complex. And those owners approached the Planning Commission on how they could more efficiently use that land so they could provide more units and better utilize that space and provide more green space. Additionally, we've acquired the VDOT property, and while the city is determined to use that for its highest and best use, that may turn out to be housing. And that would be ideal for that entrance corridor to the city. And last but not least, where we played a supportive role, thank goodness for Habitat for Humanity in acquiring those 8 lots on Route 11 South, right across from Lexington Restaurant. The city's going to play a small supporting role in that, but thank God for Habitat, because affordable housing is on its way to the city. Thank you.
Well, David and Nick hit on a couple of highlights that I had listed for my remarks. Especially Thompson's Knoll, great idea, didn't work out. Habitat for Humanity is a fantastic program we have in the region, and getting some incentives lined up for those folks going in across from Lexington Restaurant, again, a no-brainer. But I'd like to address, I guess, the concept of affordability. So what is something that's affordable? It's an economics question. Should we have a workforce that's educated and healthy that can earn higher wages and therefore be able to afford the housing that we have? Or is it a supply issue where we can have more houses off Main Street, more apartments on Spotswood, or a larger development on at the VDOT property? The combination of those two factors should bring a middle ground that addresses the question of affordable housing. So to answer the first part of an educated and healthy workforce that can attract higher wages and a strong workforce, Rockbridge Area Health Center and our Carillion Rockbridge Community Hospital have great programming to keep our population healthy. Mountain Gateway Community College can also help in this area through fast forward and G3 tuition assistance in skilled labor areas like healthcare, transportation, IT, manufacturing, welding, HVAC, a number of programs that we can benefit from to strengthen our workforce to help get the that educated and healthy workforce involved in our community so they can afford the housing that we have here as we bring the supply down. How many units are we going to have on VDOT? That's a question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next question will be for our candidates for Congress. This is about rural broadband. So in today's technology-driven world, access to broadband has become a necessity. Here in the Commonwealth in Virginia recently, House Bill 447, which would have required each broadband provider operating in the Commonwealth to have offered an affordable monthly plan for services based on certain parameters and conditions, died in committee. So it's still a problem in our area. How can the federal government help ensure that all families in our community and across the country have access to affordable broadband? And we'll start in alphabetical order again. So Ben.
Well, access to broadband is an important tool for education, for healthcare, for business, and for general economic development. And the coronavirus pandemic has highlighted the necessity to expand internet access to more Americans as services have moved online, and will continue to utilize web services long after the pandemic has subsided. And as a member of the Rural Broadband Caucus, I've worked on several initiatives and legislation related to rural broadband, most recently co-sponsored the Broadband for Rural America Act and the Gigabit Opportunity Act, which would create opportunity zones and provide tax incentives for investing in broadband services in low-income and rural areas, creating opportunities for economic growth as new businesses emerge in newly connected areas. And also the Broadband for Rural America Act, which would increase the efficiency of U.S. Department of Agriculture programs for expanding broadband in rural areas, and direct funds to the Reconnect Rural America program, which provides grants for building out broadband infrastructure in rural areas. This program in particular would be reauthorized under the Farm Bill, which will be up for reauthorization next year. It is going to be important to have someone representing rural areas like ours who is going to be able to influence that process to make sure that funds for broadband, not just in cities, not just in the western parts of the country, but in small areas like ours, are able to take advantage and access those funds. We also have worked to provide billions of dollars, $9.2 billion, working to make sure that they can be, that funding can be awarded to unserved locations across rural America. I've joined my colleagues on several letters urging the FCC to use those funds appropriately, and in the majority, Republicans will continue to invest in rural broadband. Thank you.
So I want to start this segment out by just expressing how frustrating it is that we are still talking about rural broadband. I grew up in a very rural, small town. In my senior year of high school, I would sign onto my AOL screen name and talk to my friends. So that was 20 years ago. I don't understand how politicians, including my opponent, has been promising rural broadband for 20 years, and there are still people that don't have broadband at home. Being without internet directly impacts the productivity of any small business. The internet allows access to programs and apps that help with payroll, staying on top of your taxes, programs to help with the dreaded staff scheduling, and all of that is not available if your business or home is in an internet dead zone. More and more of our healthcare providers are sharing important medical information online. I know when I go and get my blood work done, my results are sent to my MyChart online. So think if you don't have internet at home, you don't get your test results. You might not be able to refill your prescriptions on time. So we need to make sure that our seniors, as well as people with medical risks, have access to their online patient records, test results, and be able to refill prescriptions without having to travel to the nearest town to get reception. In Botetourt County, the school district has the second slowest internet access in the state. The internet is so important in education and bringing educational opportunities to everybody in the 6th district. The internet is a necessity for adult education as well as K through 12. Lack of reliable, affordable rural broadband in the 6th District should have been resolved years ago. But in 2022, we still have families, businesses, and communities without what is now considered a standard utility. Legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act and grants to the USDA are helping connect our small rural communities at an affordable rate. I will support federal funding and grant programs to ensure everyone in the 6th District finally gets accessible, affordable internet. Thank you.
Okay, this next question back for our city council candidates. And this is question number 2 on what you guys, so this is the second question. Okay. Many of our downtown merchants have had to shorten the hours they are open due to lack of workforce in the retail, hospitality, tourism industry, and I will add healthcare industry as well, although healthcare is not able to shorten their hours. How would you incentivize the recruitment of new talent to our community? And we're going to start at the other end of the table this time. So Chuck, this your first step.
Well, hopefully I answered part of the healthcare question by educating folks that are here through our community college system. You know, this is a real tough nut. When I look at our unemployment numbers, which are 2.5% for the county and about 4% for the city, and I look at our food and lodging tax revenues, which are ahead of budget and close to the numbers that we had in 22, sales tax numbers being slightly behind, and I look at our downtown and see 2 new businesses opening up. I see 2 new hotels coming into the region. There's a new event space downtown. I'm trying to tease apart the root of the question, because everything I've seen around here has been pretty good, other than a few restaurants that have had to shorten hours as a result of staff. And maybe that's just a hangover from COVID. We're still coming out of it. The workforce that is ready to re-enter the workforce just hasn't re-entered it yet. How do we improve our workforce? Again, it's through education and healthcare. We can, as we continue to build on that force and keep the people that want to live here to be able to live here and support the health, or support the retail and hospitality and tourism sectors that we have, then we're painted forward to benefit on the back end. Another program I've read about is investing in our tourism and recreational infrastructure, better bike paths, better walking paths, more opportunities for outdoor recreation to, again, bring those folks in from out of town to support the retail and restaurant hospitality facilities that we have here.
All right, so this is a great question, and I do not want to overstate the small city's role dealing with private business to incentivize hiring practices too much. But the fact of the matter is, when I think about workforce shifts, the city of Lexington has also faced some labor challenges. And so what did we do? Before we decided to recruit, we decided we had to retain. And so we commissioned a compensation study with our partners of Rockbridge County, and we compared the positions and the responsibilities of our city employees and the county employees to those in the entire region up and down the valley. And as a result of that compensation study, the city of Lexington significantly increased compensation for our existing employees, as did Rockbridge County. And so that was our first step to take on the workforce challenges. We had to retain the good people that we have. And I think we've done that in the city of Lexington. But as far as recruiting, the city of Lexington needs to again play a very supportive role to support private industry and private businesses. We need to uplift the fact that we've got amazing schools, because employees might be looking for amazing schools for their kids. We need to uplift the fact that we have an incredibly safe city and safe region. Employees might also want to look for those outdoor opportunities that Chuck mentioned. This is an incredible place to exercise and recreate outdoors. And so those are assets that we have, that the city of Lexington, Rockbridge County, Buena Vista we need to take care of those parts of our area so that as employers are looking to recruit workers, those areas, they can check the box and say, these are areas that are second to none in the whole area. And then finally, if we have an opportunity to partner with the Y on childcare issues, or if we have a chance to partner with Mountain Gateway Community College on workforce issues, we must do it. I cannot overstate the impact that the YMCA has had on their Y After School program and their child care center here in the city of Lexington and in Rockbridge County. It's been huge for families. I obviously have kids, and I know a lot of folks with kids.
So to incentivize workforce in our community, we need to have a place where folks can live. If you look at our population here in Lexington, it kind of peaked in the 1960s or 70s and then was on steady decline for a few decades. It has since rebounded over the last couple decades, and I would suspect that part of the reason why is based on construction. Now, if there aren't enough places for people to live in the city, they're going to have to live elsewhere. And if they live elsewhere, they may choose to work closer to where they live. So part of the way that we incentivize workers is that workers can afford to live in the city that they work. So that'll help the city as well. It'll increase our tax revenues if people spend money where they work. Increase our sense of community. If you go to your local business and you see your neighbor there. So I think that one way that we can incentivize workers to stay here is by having places where they can live. So that whether it's rental units for folks just getting started out, whether it's condos or townhomes or smaller square footage single-family homes where folks can build equity. This is imperative because when people have ties to their community, they are going to be more likely to stay there and work there and build a family there and share community. So if we can find a way to expand our affordable housing, as many good ideas have been put forward here today, then I see the ability to incentivize workers to stay here in Lexington and build our community in that manner. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, first of all, I fully support what Nicholas just said, and he said it beautifully. I want to thank all the small business owners for hanging in there during this storm that I believe we're moving through, and I want to thank the Chamber for all the supportive events that they do, almost every week. But I don't believe there's any easy solution to this. It's because it's not business as usual. We are, from the way I sit, I don't know where you get your news, you don't know where I get my news. But when I piece it all together, I believe we are really in a crisis as a country, and we are in a storm. Okay, this local area is very, very blessed, very blessed. But you know the litany. Inflation's going up, it's going to go up further. Gas prices are going up. After the election, they'll go up further. Crime is going up. Our AG, Jason Mayeras, was down in Roanoke just 2 weeks ago talking to community leaders about the violent crime wave. Not the crime wave, the violent crime wave. That's 50 miles from us. They're talking about food shortages, energy shortages. The border is wide open. Some of our cities are declaring an emergency, okay? And here we are, blessed. But I do believe in January we're going to turn this around. And in the meantime, and I know this sounds really old-fashioned, I think we need to all trim our budgets, including the city. We need to get ready to help our neighbors get through the winter. We need to tighten our belts, and we need to count our blessings.
Thank you. Next question is to you all, and this topic is on mental health. So we know that mental health, depression, and stress are on the rise in our country. What measures can be put into place to assist individuals who are experiencing a mental health crisis? And more importantly, from where you all are going to be sitting, or one of you will be sitting, what role can the federal government provide in assisting the states as they work through these issues? And this will start with you, Jim.
Hopefully you were all listening to my opening remarks and heard that I'm a mental health worker. So I'm a mental health worker, and I support funding the expansion of mental health care and addiction services in all of our communities. It's one of my top priorities. We need to make sure that the cost of getting help is never the reason that somebody doesn't get the help that they need. We need to expand telehealth options. Those providers are providing life-saving work. Our mental health hospitals are at max capacity because the funding is cut continuously. Psych units are understaffed, underpaid, and under-resourced. With more funding, we can hire more healthcare professionals, providing more local jobs and decreasing the number of people on wait lists. Talk to our local police. Our police chiefs have to pull people from the streets and sit with folks in the ER that are going through a mental health crisis, sometimes for days. And I've seen this firsthand as a mental health worker. Those who have already been marginalized continue to fall through the cracks. Even our veterans have to jump through hoops to get the funding for their mental health care, which can sometimes just seem like a pissing match between bureaucrats, and it drives me crazy. Anyone who has ever applied for veterans assistance know how hard it can be. We need to make healthcare more accessible for seniors too. The reimbursement rate for assisted living facilities and in-home care needs to dramatically increase. We need to fund social programs so people can socialize and engage in their community. I believe that a living wage, affordable housing, and a fulfilling job can be a part in mental health stability. Having access to preventative care, physical health care is mental health. We need to expand 24-hour mental health care so that those who need it have immediate access. But sadly, our current congressman has voted against mental health funding and resources, even just as recently as a few weeks ago when he voted against the Mental Health Matters Act, which would have increased school funding. Oh, sorry.
Time.
Finish that later. Thanks, everyone.
Well, I'm not a mental health worker, but I've been working on mental health for decades. As your representative in the General Assembly, I chaired the Mental Health Subcommittee of the Courts of Justice Committee. And when we overhauled and reformed our mental health system in Virginia, I partnered with Senator Creed Deeds to make sure that we ended the process of streeting people with mental illnesses. The fact that we put a bed registry online, I authored that bill. The fact that we invested record levels in mental health funding, I was proud to support those measures. And even today, in fact, I voted to provide $35 million in grants to expand services and support for mental health for children and youth, $21 million for the Zero Suicide Program, $24 million for the Suicide Lifeline, $3.8 billion for substance abuse treatment and research, including funding to combat the opioid crisis. Most recently, in June, I voted for the Restoring Hope for Mental Health and Wellbeing Act, which provides funding for a variety of mental health services, including resources for school guidance counselors, substance abuse programs, and suicide prevention grants. H.R. 7666, which passed 402 to 20 back on June 22nd. I was proud to vote for that. There's a lot of talk about increasing funds, and we have to make sure that we can afford that funding for mental health. Where I will never vote to take that money from is our police. I will never vote to defund our police to do so. I always support our law enforcement agencies. I will always back the blue, and I will never vote to defund the police, unlike my opponent, who speaks in favor of defunding the police programs.
All right, this is our final question for City Council, and this is question number 1 in the order it was sent to you. What is the most important issue facing the city today that you will prioritize if you are elected to council? And we'll kind of start in the middle here. Nicholas, we'll start with you.
Absolutely.
So I think affordable housing is the most important issue facing our city and our state and our country. It's really important that folks, I've kind of talked about it this whole night, and I kind of want to tie it all together by explaining whether it's incentivized. So in Lexington specifically, we are the youngest city in this country, which is awesome. We have so much talent, so much potential here. We have 2 excellent universities. We have great K through 12 education in the area, and we need to retain the excellent talent that is here in our community. And the question is, how do we do that? Well, we need to have places where people can live when they graduate from high school or graduate from college, so that they can, get started and work and stay here, and when they're able to purchase something, build equity. And that's important for our aging population as well, to have, for our senior population, to have places where they could move if they wanted to downsize, take advantage of some of the equity that they've built up over the years, to live in retirement. And, there needs to be a market to buy people's houses as they age and they want to downsize. So I think having affordable housing is a key component to increasing our workforce, to retaining our talent, to letting folks age where they want to age and stay here with, where their friends and their family and their community is, and not having to move somewhere else. So I think that it's imperative that we find a way to work with business leaders, with entrepreneurs, and the city of Lexington itself to make sure that we find ways to expand affordable housing in the city of Lexington so we can strengthen our community. Thank you very much.
So we'll kind of do the round robin like this, so you'll go next.
I would like to focus on citizen involvement. And I have 4 ways that I'd like to do that. Number 1, I would like to do a survey of every citizen of this city, face-to-face, not email, because believe it or not, there are people in Lexington who don't have a computer and who are not comfortable doing email. Face-to-face survey and find out what their complaints are. Of course, that's always easiest to do first. But also, what are your good ideas? Some people feel so excluded from the whole Lexington government scene that they don't have maybe positive ideas. So we need to jumpstart that approach. I would like to set up an advisory council, and I would ask for a volunteer from every single neighborhood to come together regularly and talk to me and to the council about how they feel their neighborhood is feeling about issues, what the complaints are, what the positive ideas are. I would like to, third, set up office hours at least once a week, and maybe a local church would donate a room for that so people could come and talk to me or one of our council members. And then fourth, I would like to hopefully expand the avenues between citizens and the council so they can come before council, have more than 3 minutes to talk to them, have some kind of exchange coming back. There needs to be more of a communication going back and forth. Communication and involvement are really key because the city belongs to the citizens.
Most important issue facing the city today. As usual, it's how do we increase our revenues and reduce our costs? We have several looming big ticket items coming at us. We need a new jail. Who's going to pay for that? How are we going to pay for it? Rockbridge County High School is undergoing some very significant upgrades and new construction. Athletic upgrades and the Votech Center and educational, the actual school building, are going to total upwards of $30 million. A Morris Service Authority water plant had a $20 million estimate on the water plant upgrade. That has now been increased to close to $40 million in 2 years. 30% of the water that gets sent out of the Morris Service Authority water plant is not billed. That is, we have a 30% loss of water in the region that comes out of the plant. That's not sustainable. These significant cost upgrades that are coming at us, the jail, the water plant, and the high school, we're going to come up with some very creative thinking on how to solve these economic problems coming at us. I wish I had a magic bullet to fix all of this. We've endured in the past. We have a strong community. I'm sure we'll overcome, but I see some sacrifices coming at us that we're going to have to make. Thank you.
All right, I think I can hit on two important issues in 2 minutes, so bear with me. First and foremost, the City of Lexington and our regional partners need to continue to work together responsibly and cooperatively. None of the challenges that Chuck just mentioned can be solved by one local government entity. Whether it is modernizing the jails to get rid of the overcrowding, whether it is enhancing the high school campus, whether it is remodeling and modernizing the wastewater treatment plant. We need a new Department of Social Services, and we've needed that for decades. What about the fact that when you call 911 around here, it might take an ambulance 25 minutes to get there? That's inexcusable in 2022, but the solution to those challenges will be regional. None of us can solve those challenges by ourselves. The second important issue is something that I have prioritized, and it's something that Ms. Berry-Reck hit on, engaging the public. Since I've been on City Council, we had hundreds of citizens participate in our strategic planning process. We had hundreds of citizens participate in the comprehensive plan process that the Planning Commission spearheaded. During COVID, we had virtual meetings. Yet you know what? We had 5 hours of public comment. The citizens in Lexington were engaged on hot topics, and that made me excited. As we came out of COVID, we listened to the public as a City Council. We now meet at 7 p.m. instead of 8 p.m. We moved our meetings to the County Administration Building because they have top-notch audio and visual technology that we now take advantage of for Planning Commission and for City Council meetings. And of course, we stream all of our meetings live on YouTube, and we archive them on YouTube so everyone can stay informed. And 2 final points. Our clerk of council takes the best minutes. So even if you miss that meeting, you can read the minutes and know what we did. And she sends a weekly newsletter that everyone should sign up for. We prioritize your input.
Thank you. All right, this is another question for our Congress. This is about commerce. So Virginia has dropped in the most recent rankings for best state to do business. Where do you feel we should place our priorities in order to rebuild our local economy, regain our competitiveness, and how can the federal government help?
Well, Virginia is among the top states in America to do business, and that's because we worked so hard to maintain a pro-business set of policies in Richmond they have. Well, I still sound like a state representative sometimes. We worked hard when I was there to maintain that, to keep our Right to Work Act, to make sure we kept taxes low, to make sure we kept regulations low. Unfortunately, during the last administration, what we saw was an abdication of that responsibility to keep Virginia pro-business. What we had was an increase in taxes, increases of regulations on businesses, and that has affected our ranking. Also affecting our ranking is inflation, and that is a national problem. And I'm glad I'm finally going to get to pivot to something that is on the mouths of every taxpayer and every business that I talk to, is the 8.2% inflation rate that we're seeing right now, that is a direct result of overspending by this administration in Washington due to the bills, the trillions of dollars that have been spent over the past 2 years. Just look at what's been going up. Energy costs are up 19.8%, food is up 13%, health insurance up 28%. Inflation outpaced workers' wages for 18 months in a row. That's the entire Biden administration. Real average hourly earnings decreased 3% over the last year. Average 401ks shrunk by 25%. Over 70% of workers say their pay has fallen behind. This administration and Speaker Nancy Pelosi and this House have done nothing to address inflation. My opponent hasn't put forward a solution. Energy independence is the solution, and we're going to get back to energy independence if we take the majority in November. Thank you.
Well, we compete with high-speed rural broadband and by investing in our workers. But what does that look like? Investing in educational opportunities like mentorship programs, apprenticeships, and trade schools. The trades of tomorrow are already here, and Virginia's workforce must be able to compete. The Democrats just passed the CHIPS Act to bring manufacturing back to America. And this is modern industry, working with semiconductors and other science-based tech that can provide jobs and business growth in America, but also right here in Virginia for decades to come. Business growth can be made possible with state funds and government investments as well. I'm happy to see the recent news in Waynesboro, where I live, of a custom crush wine business that will help serve local wineries. I've worked part-time at a local winery for 15 years, and I've seen the massive growth in this industry firsthand. And it's now more than a $1.7 billion a year industry. I'm a huge supporter of hemp farmers who are excited to bring their products to market. Hemp is a sustainable alternative for cotton and plastics and has many medicinal benefits. And unlike many other crops, it can be harvested 3 times a year, so family farms can make more money. Now that we have legalized marijuana, we need to think of how we can support that small business in this new industry. We need Congress to regulate big corporations that have too much power and control over our economy. They are able to dominate their industry and crush out competition of smaller businesses. These massive corporations go unregulated and are the true cost of the majority of our inflation issues. You can't blame rising prices on inflation when the CEOs are seeing record-breaking profits, while underpaying employees and overcharging customers. If elected, I'll hold big businesses accountable and never let party politics get in the way of helping our economy grow. I finally finished a question without going over.
Okay, so we're finished with the prepared questions, and now we have some questions that have been submitted by the audience. And the first question is for City Council. To kind of make it fair, we'll start with David and do the round robin this way and end with Nicholas, okay? Okay, according to the Commissioner of Revenue, 65% of the land in Lexington is exempt from property tax. 12 years ago, that figure was 52%. As a council member, what would you do to stop the erosion of the city tax base?
So fortunately, some of the properties that have recently been acquired by Washington Lee, even though they technically are not on the tax rolls, W&L does contribute over $700,000 annually to the city of Lexington that we utilize to meet our budget obligations. So that is a very, very positive attribute about Washington Lee. Additionally, some of the properties that have recently been purchased and are now used by Washington Lee have been done so by a private investor who now leases those properties. So those properties are on the tax rolls, and as that private investor invests millions of dollars, he's increasing the value of those properties, which contributes to our tax base and actually increases our tax base. Additionally, the city of Lexington has looked at the property that we have owned over the years, and that's one thing with the water tower project and also the Spotswood property. Those are pieces of property that the city of Lexington has owned for decades and have been underutilized. And the city has looked at those pieces of property to see if we can capitalize on their development potential to increase the tax base, get more water and sewer customers, and really provide more housing opportunities for residents to move to the city of Lexington. And we're so appreciative of the work that happened in Richmond to allow us to acquire the VDOT property when VDOT vacated it and moved out by the Waffle House. That's an excellent piece of property in the city of Lexington with incredible development potential, and the city wants to use that for its highest and best use. It may be housing, it may be something else, but the bottom line is it's going to be on the tax rolls, it's going to contribute. Beyond that, the city of Lexington has to provide an environment where we can make sure that we are increasing our revenue from lodging taxes and meals taxes. I get that it's not part of the question about our land. However, we are very, very fortunate that some thriving businesses in town contribute greatly to those tax revenues. Thank you.
So the question was how to increase the tax base?
The question was how to stop the erosion of the tax base.
The erosion of the tax base.
That's the way it is written, yes.
Well, I think that you've got to flip the coin. How do you increase the tax base as a strategy to decrease the erosion of it? David hit a lot of the high notes there. But again, maintaining a healthy and educated workforce that can live here, that can bring their kids here, that they can go to our schools here, spend money here, to sustain and grow our tax base is, I think, the best strategy we have before us. The VDOT property that will be developed will help, and we'll have people living here. The Spotswood property with 50-plus apartments will have people living here and eating here and dining here and bringing in friends and showing how awesome Lexington and Rockbridge County and the region is to visit and spend money and bring their tax dollars with them to help lighten the load that we have right now. Those strategies, I think in the long term, this is the best thing about improving the quality of life that we have here. The more money we put into getting people to come here and visit and enjoy what we have, the better it is for everybody else that's already here. Those strategies, I think, in the long term will maintain the tax base we have and grow it. The Commissioner of Revenue is correct. The 65% of the assessed value that we have, like if you took, I think W&L's land value assessment is, it's crazy. It's like $100 million. No, AMI is very close to that. Those are significant numbers, absolutely. But how do we maintain the taxable base that we have through the programs I think that we just described? Educate and keep our workforce healthy so they can afford to live here and spend money.
Colette?
Well, first of all, I think that we should talk to the citizens about how they feel about W&L starting to continuing to gobble up our land. I know weeks ago at the city council meeting, there must have been 11 people in there really pushing to put the brakes on W&L. So, number one, we should talk to the citizens about how they feel about the W&L. Number two, I personally feel that W&L should fork over more taxes. Number three, why do we have to raise and acquire more money? Why don't we cut our budget and live more simply? it's always, more. What can we have more? How can we do more? How can it be bigger? How about we downsize? How about we rehabilitate buildings? How about we work together and be creative about how to cut our expenses, especially at this point in time when we're in such an economic nightmare. And there's no end in sight, except hopefully in January it's going to start turning around. Thank you.
So that 65% is actually the most in the Commonwealth of Virginia of any locality, which is, somewhat shocking. I think one way that we can try to maintain our tax base and grow our tax base. It has already been said we need to increase our tax base, through workforce development and also through, business growth. But additionally, I think one thing that I don't know if it's been quite touched upon is we need to have conversations with the stakeholders. Ms. Barry Reck did mention the citizens, but we also need to have conversations with the institutions. What's good for the institutions is also good for the city of Lexington in some respects. The institutions need good schools for their faculty, children to go to. The institutions need functional roads for people to travel, whether it's employees or students. So really, one way to stop the erosion is to have a conversation and say, hey, we need a certain amount of taxable property in the city to maintain infrastructure. And to kind of continue on that, when I was on planning commission, we had a discussion regarding some of the properties in the triangle. And they, WNL owns those properties, and they were thinking about knocking them down. And but I brought up the point that that's good. There's limited housing. Where are the folks going to live? And WNL took the comments of the citizens. They took comments that I like to think that I helped contribute, and they revised their plan. And they did not knock those houses down, and there's more places for people to live here now. So I think that having a conversation is one of the best ways to kind of maintain harmony in the city and to have synergy so that we can develop Lexington to a place we all love to live in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, this question is for you all. The cost of college has been increasing at a much higher rate than the rate of inflation, and young people are disproportionately paying the price by having to take out student loans. What would you do to slow down the increase of tuition rates if you were elected to Congress?
Yeah, student debt is a huge problem. I'm still paying back my student loans. My husband and I, between our two student loans, it's almost $600 a month that we're spending in student loans. So when you think of what could we do with $600 a month if we didn't have to pay those loans back, or if they were just a little bit lower. I'm excited about these programs coming out with the Biden administration of canceling student debt. I'm excited as a mental health worker for, there's different avenues that you can get your loans decreased by being a mental health worker, being a teacher, being a police officer, all of those kind of things depending on your job. And if you're going to an industry that is lacking in professionals, you can get your student loans decreased that way. So I think one of the ways is continuing to support student loan forgiveness, and especially geared towards these professions and these industries that we're talking about having such job shortages, such lack of professions in the mental health field, in the healthcare profession. Even our teachers are quitting and leaving the education field. So I think if we can start off with those professions that, again, are short-staffed as it is, having a program allowing for some student debt relief in those high-needed professions would be a great place to start.
The cost of college is out of control, and we need to take comprehensive action to encourage those universities to control their costs. What we're seeing is an explosion on the administrative side. Faculty rates are staying fairly static, while the creation of new assistant deans for a variety of purposes has taken hold and has increased tuition costs. One of the problems is that about 10 years ago, under Democratic leadership, we shifted oversight and over the lending process from the private sector to the public sector. And when that happened, it sent a signal to the colleges and universities that they could charge as much as they want because the government will back as much as you can borrow. And so you were encouraged to borrow more and more because you knew that the government would back it and the colleges went right along with it. So we have to get back to a time when the private sector has a role to play in this process to make sure that people borrowing money are actually being responsible when they take out these loans, looking at future employment, how much they're going to be earning, but also making sure that there's a stake in the game for the universities, because if the universities have a stake in backing the loans or supporting the loans that are taken out by their students, they're going to make sure that they are actually getting the education that they need to get the job to pay back the loan. So we just had my higher education roundtable today, where we convene all of the presidents of universities and colleges in the 6th District. We met at Blue Ridge Community College. Community colleges are a big part of that because the workforce is critical, and our future workforce, training that future workforce, is not just about colleges and four-year universities. It's about those getting technical degrees as well. Thank you.
Okay, we will return over here to, thank you. We will return over here to City Council. So one of the things that you all have kind of touched on, we've touched on affordable housing, we've touched on bringing, increasing the workforce here. One of you mentioned bringing better paying jobs so that people can afford better houses and things like that. One thing that has not been mentioned that is critical to the workforce is childcare. I think you did mention it in regards to the why. But for people who are struggling in Lexington to be here and to live and to work, and specifically around childcare, what are your plans to bring better childcare and better paying jobs to be able to afford the childcare to the city of Lexington? And we'll start back here with you, Colette.
That's a hard question. And being a homeschooling mom, living on pennies while we did it, childcare is way out there for me. But it seems to me with what is happening in too many of our schools that more and more people are pulling their children out of schools and creating co-ops where they can do childcare, where they can do homeschooling. I'm actually hoping to start one myself with my daughter who's homeschooling, and I was amazed when she was looking for a homeschool co-op, how many had popped up in just this local area. So I would really have to think hard about how to do that, because I believe that the mother's place is in the home, and I sacrificed a lot to stay at home. I could have had a major career, but the children always came first. So I'm not really sure how I would handle that in terms of the money and creating jobs to have the childcare and all that, because I'm not really a businesswoman. I am a human services person, and so I would really have to sit down and pray and talk to moms looking for childcare to come up with some creative ideas. But I know as women that we can do it. We can pull together, we can live on pennies in order to support our children.
One thing we could consider doing is looking at expanding early childhood education, potentially in our public schools, and see if that's something that we can try to do. Children learn so much in the early years of life, and I can tell you, years ago, it was in a different county, but I substitute taught on like the first week of kindergarten, and it was amazing. Some kids could read, and some kids didn't know the color code. So I think it's really important if we can try to give kids, some type of education earlier in life, and help do that through the public school system. If we can maybe have pre-K, if we can find somewhere in the city budget to help folks out, subsidize folks maybe that are low income, and find a way to get kids an education earlier on in life. Because it's so important, because the gap, in learning can happen so quickly, and by the time, a child gets to kindergarten, they might not, they might be way behind their peers. And that doesn't just have effects on the individual, it doesn't just have effects on the family, it has effects on the community as a whole. It's really important that, our test, to get our test scores up, to increase innovation, to increase productivity, we gotta have a competent workforce, and we gotta have an innovative workforce. And to have an innovative workforce, we gotta give kids an education earlier on. And so I think that if Lexington can find a way to help maybe start, some pre-K type programs or something like that in the elementary school year, I think that'll go a long way towards helping us be successful in the future. Thank you very much.
I agree, child care issues are incredibly challenging for young families. And those challenges exist for both the mother and the father. And I, for one, want to just put it out there publicly how incredibly proud I am of my wife that works outside the home and has significantly more education than I do. My wife, when we met at the Palms, she was an elementary school teacher in the city of Lexington. And then, while teaching elementary school, she drove 3 nights a week to Hollins to get her master's degree. And then, early on in our marriage, she decided to go back to UVA full-time to get her PhD. And now she's a college professor. She defended her dissertation 9 months pregnant. And at graduation, our newborn was there. The example that my wife is providing to my 2 daughters of being ambitious, successful, and the breadwinner in our household will take my kids so far, my 2 daughters. I mentioned earlier I have a 14-year-old. I have a 9-year-old. We parent them together. It has been one of my responsibilities for all 14 years. I take the kids to school. I do that. I get a little bit of time with them. And of course, we both have juggled picking them up from school, taking them to practices. So we co-parent. And if I'm on city council, there will be times I'm late to a meeting because I'm with my kids or because I'm responsible for getting them someplace. So I just want to put that out there. If you elect me, you get my kids also. But as far as childcare, I think I highlighted the importance that I put on the YMCA. We also have Yellow Brick Road that is right over here that has an incredible role in the city of Lexington. We have Woods Creek Montessori, we have Earth Song Montessori, and we have lots of caregivers in their homes that provide incredible services to moms and dads.
Well, like Dave, I married way up. My wife was getting her PhD in 1997. So, between the two of us, we have co-parented our kids. We have two successful children. One just got a job, sorry if I digress, got a job in Seattle. You want to talk about affordable housing? A studio apartment in Seattle, Washington is $2,000 a month. You want to talk about a shock. Anyhow, we're getting that figured out. But when we look at the successful programs that we have here, like Gilbert Road, like Montessori, like private homes that are doing in-home child care, that were part of our child care when we had our kids that weren't ready for school yet as a result. I mean, I brought my kids into my store downtown every day and walked around with one of them on my chest while I'm trying to sell wine to customers. We're going to build on the success that we have now, especially what the Y is doing right now. What are they doing right? How can we do it broader for everybody that needs that help? And I think we can do it because we have a great model, we have great success, we have a great community here that can make that happen.
Okay, I think we have, thank you all. We have time for one more question, and this will be finishing you all up. Everybody reads about Medicare being at risk and in a lot of different ways. What do you feel like the federal government needs to do to assure Medicare, as I look around this room, here's your Medicare audience, or soon to be Medicare audience. So what can be done about Medicare?
Well, that is the big question, and it has to do with the success of our entitlement programs and how to make them sustainable into the future. Medicare, which is providing health care for millions of elderly Americans, is a cornerstone of the program. We have to make it sustainable beyond the date at which it is going to become insolvent, which is in the next decade. And the spending that's gone on in the past 2 years has not helped things. It has made the share of the budget that is interest on the debt, which has surpassed $30 trillion, larger and larger, and it is pushing more and more on our entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all of which are approaching insolvency unless we take action. We have no leadership from the House, we have no leadership from the Senate, we have no leadership from the White House. So it will be incumbent upon the new majority, if Republicans take the majority in November, to put forward a plan. And we have to make sure that we continue the plan, continue the system that was presented to you all as you were working and preparing for that system. Because it would not be fair to today's seniors to change the program because you all were saving based on what you were expecting to receive from Medicare, from Social Security, from Medicaid over your lifetime. My girls, I'm going to brag on my wife a little bit, got her PhD and said, I think I'll go back to law school. So she has her PhD and then she got her law degree from Washington and Lake. We have twin daughters, they're teenagers in training. Medicare will not be the same for them as it is currently. But we must make sure that it exists for them when they are seniors as well, and I would like to make that happen.
I'm excited that the Democrats passed legislation that allows Medicare finally to be able to negotiate drug prices. Before that wasn't allowed. And I support expanded and improved Medicare for all. We cannot have anybody in this country be without health care and access to health care, whether it's preventative, ongoing, and again, mental health, as we've talked so much about tonight. We are the richest country in this world, and for anybody to not have access to health care is completely inexcusable. To suffer when there's treatments out there, and again, is inexcusable. I don't understand how anybody in this audience or anybody listening cannot agree that everyone deserves health care, that health care is a right for everyone in this country. So again, I support expanded and improved Medicare for all.
Thank you, and thank all of you. I'm going to invite our Chamber Board President. Where is she? There she is.
Hard to see.
Yeah, and who also is the leader of this Y that everybody has been talking about, in case you didn't know. Sorry, but she is here as our Board President of the Chamber of Commerce, Bobby Wagner.
Thank you guys for being here. We live in an awesome community with a group of very caring and committed citizens, and it's so great to come out and see all you faces tonight. So I do need to say thank you to several folks. First and foremost, thank you to the Hampton Call Auto for hosting us this evening. We appreciate it. Super shout out to Albert Vargas, standing in the back. He deserves a round of applause. Which has put in all the work to make this evening happen. And thank you to our Chamber Board of Directors, all of you Chamber members that we see out there this evening. I will not list all of these for the sake of time, but you all have a program hopefully in your hands, or you've seen it this evening, and there's a list of businesses on the back. Please look at these businesses, because these businesses support other businesses in our community because they support our chamber. And that's a really special thing to see this. So thank you to all those businesses out there, and last but not least, thank you to Chuck, David, Nicholas, Colette, Jennifer, and Ben Klein for being here this evening. We appreciate it.